Hello everyone, welcome back to Game of Thrones Winter's Coming. Today we are going to take a look at how the badge system works in the game, and we're also going to look at small tricks you can use and why certain badges are better than others. Currently you can see that I have showing some of my badges that I have currently. There are different kinds. There are troop specific badges which are basically categorized in terms of infantry, cav, bowman, spear as well, and they also have each different tiers that give different stats based on their tier level. You can see here, for example, that gray cav badges give 2%, greens give 3.75%, and 7.5% on blue badges. So there are like a lot of options you can choose between, and there are also badges for fortification or in general for the wall as well, and that's all great and fine and so on, but it can be very confusing for someone to figure out, especially if they're new to the game, what's actually good to use and what doesn't work at all. For example, there are like these fortification badges and wall badges, and at the current state of the game and how it is, they have a lot of unusability, if you can say it like that. There's a lot of things that's happening currently in the game that makes them pretty much useless. The main reason for this is that the wall has a very limited amount of HP to it, and the same with the fortifications, and once the wall goes down, then the fortifications are also gone basically. So most people just tend to directly ignore these specific badges. And then there's bowman. Bowman is like a super specific niche type of thing. Some people prefer it. They can make it work somehow. Maybe it's because their accounts are just that much stronger, I don't know. But generally, the general idea is people go for the troop specific ones in terms of cav, inf and spear, and there are also the total ones. In terms of total badges, you can see here, they have lower stats at gray than troop specific ones. You can see that cav, for example, has 2%. Gray normal total defense badge is at 1.2%, so there's also some kind of value attached to it that you have to consider. And that's not the only thing. You're also only limited to a certain amount of badges, which we are going to take a look at right now. So as you can see here right now, we have a page of equipments. Early on, there's only 3 slots unlocked for each equipment rather than 4, and I'm going to show you later where you can get these type of researches. But basically, once you click on equipment, you can see that you have 3 or 4 slots at the bottom here, depending on how far you have gone in the game. And these slots allows you to basically insetting certain badges that you want to use, basically. And something that a lot of people make as a mistake is that they usually think that if it's gold or it's the max one, then it's best, but it really depends on your setup first of all, and it also depends on how you decide to spread out your badges. For example, having 2 gold badges is nice, but then you only have it on 2 pieces of equipment, compared to having 8 purple badges where you can put it in all the equipment here. But we are going to take a look at that right now here, so be right back. So now let us take a look at the different rules that are in terms of badges in Game of Thrones. First of all, there is that only 3 to 4 badges are allowed per equipment, or per equipment piece. And the main reason for why there's only 3 to 4 is because, like I said or talked about earlier, the research that's called Badge Master that allows an additional equipment badge to be inserted. it unlocks basically the 4th slot in equipment. So don't worry if you're early on you have only 3 slots. That's completely normal. Second rule is the same type of badge isn't allowed in one equipment piece, which means that if you have, for example, like I said, you have 3-4 slots for badges in one piece of equipment, but that doesn't mean that you can just put in infantry attack in all 4 pieces of equipment. The game will not allow that, so you kind of have to change around things and be flexible and take certain aspects that kind of help you get stronger in that way, but we're also going to take a look at that later on. Third rule is that the marriage ring does not have badge slots. If you think that you can get the marriage ring and then you'll have 4 extra slots compared to others, that's not going to be the case. The marriage ring is only giving a certain amount of stats from the ring alone, and gives like small side effects that you can use with the person that you're married to, and that's pretty much it. The marriage ring does not give or have any way of having badges attached to it, so if you want to invest in it, don't do it for the badges at least. And the 4th rule is that badges do not have the same type or same value, which means that they don't have the same type of value in terms of the type of badge they are. There are certain badges, like I showed in the game before, that have lower stats at the same kind of tier. For example, the defense one had 2%, or the troop specific defense one had 2%, and the total defense badge had 1.2%, and there are other badges that splits up attack and defense in the same badge, which has like lower than the troop specific one. So it's a matter of what suits you the most and how you can kind of navigate based on the badges that you have. So that's kind of like the 4 main rules that are there in the game. So the main reason to why the badge research or badge master is a huge deal is because right now you have 8 pieces of equipment that can hold badges. When you start out, you only have access to 3 of the slots, which gives you a total of 24 slots of badges that you can put in, or amount of badges basically. Once you have the badge master research done, the 4th badge will be open, which gives you a total of 8 more badges that you can put in. And you can see here, for example, for a gold badge, that basically means that you have 8 more 25%, which is in total 200% boost to your stats, which is a lot. It's a lot. Even still at this time of plays of the game, it's a lot. Of course, it's much more difficult to get basically 8 gold badges, but if you are super strong in certain aspects, then you can definitely do it this way and consider it. So keep in mind that we had the rules as well before. There's a certain badge tree, which means that it's not always best for you to just like say, okay, I have a gold badge, I drop it in, and then have all the other badges in the equipment be gray, for example. In this particular case, if you have a gold badge, it basically has 25% when it's the spear defense one, and the purple defense one has 15%. And if you put 1 spear into it, or 1 gold badge into it, then you have a total of 25%. But if you, for example, end up breaking the gold badge apart to 4 purple ones, then you basically have the stats of 4 times 15, which is 45, and you could place in all 4 of those in each piece of equipment. This would give you an advantage, and this is like called the badge streak. This should be basically common with all the other badges as well, all of the other types of badges. And personally, I would recommend, if you want to have certain badges in all 8 pieces of gear, then you upgrade them one by one tier at a time. For example, if you start out with having 8 gray badges and split them up in between all the tiers, or 8 infantry gray badges, for example, and put them 1 in each equipment piece, Then you start with the first one to get it to, I believe the next tier is green. And then you get this one green, and then you get this one green, this one green. That's like the easiest way of remembering. There are some kind of ways. If you go like super mathematical on it, super nerdy, then you can probably do it more complex, but still give you advantages. But for me personally, I prefer to keep it somewhat simple, so I do it this way. And that's why if you want to have like the same type of badge in 8 pieces of gear, then do it this way. Maybe you only want it in 4 pieces of gear. It still works the same way. Just upgrade them one by one slowly, and that way you won't really waste additional stat power, and you will gain advantages that way. Now we talked a little bit about the different badges, like what you can do with them and how they basically work, and the small tricks that are compared to it. And you might want to know, how do you even get badges at this point of time in the game? There's a blue diamond shop which offers a badge chest. This is the rare one. I believe they also have one for uncommon and one for legendary badge chests, which all of course increase in terms of price from the badge chest. It's basically like a lottery ticket. Some badges are better than others, and some chests are better than others, possibly. If you go deep into it and do the math, then you might realize that buying certain types of chests gives you more of an advantage over, for example, the rare one. I haven't done it personally myself, but I just believe that with the limited amount of chests that you can have access to, it's really difficult to figure out which badge chest type is the best to go for. The Alliance shop also has badge chests. They only offer the rare one for, I believe it's 99k, as you can see here, Alliance coins. That's not terrible. It's not great either, but it's not terrible. You could do it, for example, if you do Alliance mobilization and you need to burn off some coins for a quest, then getting some badges is not a bad idea at all. It's a good way to get them, at least. Then there is the token shop, and the token shop works in a little bit different way. The token shop is connected to Champion City Siege event and Kingdom vs Kingdom event, and you can see that you get that they have like a certain amount of points they cost each badge, and these points you get by killing enemy troops or losing troops and basically engaging in battle. And based on the tier of troops and the amount of troops you lose, you get X amount of points for it. These badges are also special in the sense that they basically have split stats, so they have attack, defense stats built into one badge. But of course they are lower than the other badges I showed you, for example, on the page before, where you had like a pure defense badge for Spear. It doesn't really give an advantage or anything like that. It's basically just allowing you to split up the badges. And the good thing about this could be that if you have a defense badge at your last slot and you want to go a little bit extra attack over defense, then you can put in these badges and basically increase your defense or attack slightly by sacrificing your defense. So that's something you can consider. Then there's a weekly pack in the Black Diamond shop, and this particular pack, I believe it costs 500 Black Diamonds without reductions, but it gives you a few total badges in terms of total attack, total health, and total defense, and it also gives you boxes where you can pull out those badges. And it's expensive, but if you're really going heavy into investing into the game, then you might be interested in doing it. Otherwise, if you only have paying small amounts and stuff like that, there's plenty of free ways that you can get to specific badges. And with the badge presets in the game as well now, then it's much more easier to kind of switch around the badge pages, so you're not as limited as you were before. But of course, there's always some kind of risk attached to it when you can't really just put in certain types of badges. Lastly, there's also events. There are certain events that give out badge chests, and there are also certain events that you have to pay for to actually get certain badges or certain types of badges. For example, the Army of the Dead event rewards you with, I believe it's the uncommon badge chest, the purple one, for reaching a certain amount of wave or beating a certain amount of wave. So that's pretty decent. I believe that Kingdom vs Kingdom also has some badge chests, and Elite Trials for the ranking also has badge chests. Then there's an event, I can't remember, I think it's called the Iron Bank or something like that, that costs 200 black diamonds, where at the end you can pick out a gold troop specific health badge, and it's one of the few, if not the only way that you can get health badges in this game for your troops. So it's worth considering to do. It's that specific pack for 200 black diamonds has a pretty decent value in terms of what you get back. You just have to be a little bit patient and grab the things one by one each day. But that's kind of the gist of it. How you set up your badges and what to focus on in terms of stats and so on, we can take a look at in the next video. But for now, this is like the general idea of how badges work and what to do in terms of like how to maximize the badge value that you have sitting in your inventory. So we're going to go back to the game right now. So now we are back into the game again. You have just seen what we call the badge trick that I have been explaining to you guys, and use that trick well to basically manage your accounts and make yourself get stronger inside the game, because it can make a huge difference depending on how you use it. But I also talked about how you can unlock a force slot for your equipment basically, and other things that you can do. Basically, if you click at the research tower or Master's tower, you can go into refinement, and at the very bottom of refinement tree you can see a research called Badge Master. And Badge Master basically just unlocks badge slots, which is the force slot that you can get for your equipment. So this is a very huge boost in terms of stats, and it also gives you more flexibility in terms of how you play the game and how you want to set up your account. So I highly recommend that you get this very early if you can. It really is very helpful, and I personally think it's probably one of the best research you can have in this game in terms of what you get back for the value it has or it costs. There's also a second research that you can use here in this game, which is called the badge planning one. Badge planning goes up all the way up to level 10, and each level basically unlocks pre-edited badge configurations. And this means that you can basically set up certain types of badges, combination of badges that you want to use in your equipment, and with one click you can basically change it around to make yourself be much more flexible in terms of fighting outside of events, of course, because most events lock your stats. But we can take a look at how badge planning works. We are now back into the equipment screen, and here you can get access to the pre-edited or badge presets as well. You click on the yellow button, and then you can see there's an equipment side and a badge side. If you click on the badge side, then it will show up the different kinds of pages that you will have down here if you have more unlocked. I currently only have one unlocked, but I might be doing more in the future. And in here you can see basically how this specific research works. You can see that you have these indicators for what equipment slot is in use, or basically in focus, and as you can see you can click between them, and it's super easy with the badges. Basically you can click on badge here if you want it gone and add a different one, for example, and that's how easily it is. So it's super easy to use, and I highly recommend to actually have 2 or 3 pages, because it allows you to switch around. Right now it's kind of locked to what I sometimes use in general, but it also, if I have more pages, basically, if I know a certain type of person is attacking me that uses a certain type of frontline, then if I had more pages I could switch in between those much easier, make me much more unpredictable in terms of what I might be going as a frontline, and this really adds another dimension to the entire game in terms of how we can fight, in terms of PvP, regarding castle sieges maybe, or I'm not entirely sure if Champion City Siege also locks your stats or not, but if it doesn't, then it also works very well in there, I would assume. And in general, it's like I said, it's super fun to do, and you can like mess around with it and find out what basically suits you the best, and that way you can set up things. Keep in mind that you can change the name for the equipment up here, super easy to do, and if you want to save it, then you can click on confirm, and then you will have to use an equipment record item for it to actually save. So it's, like I said, it's super easy. But yeah, that's going to be everything for this time around for me. Hope you liked the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want to, and comment down below if you have certain things that you want a guide on or you want to have clarification on. And yeah, so if you want to play the game, you're new to the channel and want to play the game, the link is down below in the description, and there's also a link to the Discord group that is inside the game. And of course there's also a link to the channel from where I have my music from as well, for others that might be interested in that kind of music. So yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Take care guys, have fun, bye bye.